have this like Pilates ball, and it can be deflated. And so once it's deflated, it causes it to be sort of like it'll shapeshift to your bodies. And yet it will still be inflated a little bit so that when there is impact, there'll be some bounce. So it'll feel natural, but you will not feel the body of the other person at all.
This is Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert, and I'm Meredith. I explore the questions people think but don't ask out loud, either because they're taboo or thanks to cultural hypnosis. My mission, and yours if you choose to accept it, is to inspire curiosity by exploring the nuance and paradox of our world. Each episode is different, so bring your ADD and your earbuds and have a look around. Hey Curiositors, it's me, Meredith. I hope you survived Valentine's Day and are happily eating clearance chocolate. I also hope that my bad date story compilation last week was there for you. It was part of my Love and Relationship series, as is this episode. If you're a repeat listener, you may have already figured out that this is not your mom's personal development podcast. So when you hear Love and Relationship series, you should know not to expect Men Are From Mars type of content. And definitely this episode delivers. You're going to love Chantal. Normally, each episode is wildly different from the next, and all of them give you something to get curious about with a lesson to learn from. And if you're new here, nice to meet you. I started this podcast to inspire people to choose curiosity over judgment. Each guest brings a personal development opportunity along with their story so you can stay curious and grow. There's no special order to listen to episodes, so just have a look around and, hit play on whatever grabs your curiosity. All right, enjoy the show. Have you ever watched a hot sex scene and thought, dang, that looked really real? How were they not, Well, up until 2017, actors were often left on their own to fill in the blanks when the script said, and they made love. Or worse, they were pressured into doing things that they actually wanted to say no to. Now, much like stunt coordinators, intimacy coordinators assist the collaboration between actors and directors to facilitate safety and consent. My next guest is one of the first ICs trained in Los Angeles and has consulted on shows like This Is Us, The L Word, Terminal List, and The Offer. Today, she's going to answer the questions we all ask ourselves when we watch those steamy scenes, and what coordinating on-screen intimacy can teach us about our private lives. Toronto to LA, chatty introvert, black belt boy mom, Chantal Cousineau. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So my first question is, do those black belt skills come in handy on set ever?
I think my black belt comes in handy in every aspect of my life, with my patience, my discipline, my mom voice, my mom tone.
Okay, I did not expect that answer. I really was thinking more like, physical jujitsu, karate chop type moves, but you're talking more characteristics.
Well, endurance, but specifically martial arts. I haven't had to karate chop anyone into, doing what needed to be done yet.
Well, that's good. Okay. So my real first question is to ask you to give us a peek into the day in a life of an intimacy coordinator.
That's a big day. It's a long day. It's a lot. Let me break it down as best as I can. Well, when a production brings you on to a project and they've given you either sides for just one day of work or a script for an entire project, my job will entail of breaking down the script and finding out the scenes that would pop up the need for an intimacy coordinator. We call it an IC. And so it would either involve things that would be hyperexposed work, so any kind of partial or implied nudity or simulated sex, which is the pretend sexual act between characters or alone. And then the or trauma or anything like emotionally charged, like childbirth or physical altercation, like an emotionally charged altercation between two characters. And then I put that aside, and then I speak with the director about those scenes. So I'll have a one-on-one intimacy meeting with the director, and I'll ask all of my questions from where the camera is going to be, and all of the myriads of questions that I'll have, and I'll get a very clear picture of what the vision is for the director. And then I'll meet with the performers one-on-one, and that conversation entails of just the vision, explaining it to them, and then having them ask all of their questions as detailed as they want, as anxiety levels can rise and lower. And as I answer their questions, they get a clear picture of what it is they feel comfortable doing. And then they have, questions about what can change or how they can better understand what it is the expectation of the production. And so we can establish consent, boundaries, and having a clear understanding of what the vision is. I can talk to the performers about, their personal boundaries, barriers that will take place, physical barriers between performers, because at no time do two performers' private parts ever touch. And so with that in mind, there are many different options. And so I go through those options with the performers, and then we get to an understanding, because two performers may not have the same requirements, so we try and find a middle ground for everyone to feel the most comfortable, the most free, and the most creative, so that they can actually have fun, which is the point. And then those are just the prep phase steps that I take. And then I also have my kit, which is, I actually have it nearby. My kit.
Whoa.
It is a fun, like Mary Poppins bag full of solutions for anything that might happen on set. So then there's the second phase, which is on set. The things that I can provide for comfort, for extended periods and scenes that can last a long time, protecting of their body parts, their knees, their, just all of that. And then, of course, the breath and, hand sanitizers, especially these days during COVID. We just all want to feel safe, and we want to check in on performers to make sure that that consent that they gave 2 weeks ago when we talked about everything, that it feels fluid and that it feels ongoing, and that everybody feels like they're on the same page. So that is the day in the life, as abbreviated as I could.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions now. Okay,
please.
First, can we talk about how long does a love scene take to film?
Well, it depends on what's involved. Are they on their own? Are they with a partner? Are they with several partners? Is it a long scene? Does it go from one position, like one place, like by the front door? Is there disrobing involved? Does it happen in several different areas? How many camera angles do they want? How many cameras at the same time do they want? All of these can go from, a simple scene, which is 4 hours, to we can shoot it several days.
Okay, I didn't expect you to say a simple scene takes 4 hours. I am learning a lot already, and we're not even like halfway through our chat. Okay, so second question about the scenes, because when you said it depends on how the scene is done, that made me think about stunt coordinating. Sometimes these scenes are like way more smooth than real life lovemaking. I'm like, really? How did she get her panties off so easy? That's suspicious. Or they're like spinning and then one of them is up against a wall, and it seems like some stunts are happening while the love scene is happening. Do you ever collaborate with stunt coordinators?
Absolutely. Several times, actually. It depends on, whether or not there's a nudity rider, in which case there's certain things a performer isn't able or capable of doing physically or emotionally. And so with that, you'll have a stunt performer step in for that particular part of it. And then if there isn't a stunt but it's stunt worthy, a performer might decide to do that themselves, in which case you just want to talk about, like exactly what's going to happen, choreograph it so that it looks, like it was just spontaneous, but that it actually had point A, B, C, D, and an end mark, so that, you just reduce the possibility of harm, or, if you do it several times, you want it to match for camera. And so it's just better if it looks spontaneous, but it's actually quite coordinated.
So are percentage wise, how many of these scenes are left just kind of open, like, and they made love, and how many of them are step by step, he put his hand on her ass? Like, how specific are they, and how vague are they?
Well, that's funny. In scripts, oftentimes it'll say, and they made love, or they quickly took their clothes off and made love. And then it's fade to black. So there really isn't a lot of detail until I've spoken with the director to find out what the vision is. But the director has a very clear vision. I mean, I've just never met a director that was like, I don't know what it's going to look like. Other than I've had directors be like, I just want them to find it in the moment. Oh, so when that happens,
I hate when directors say that.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like that's, it comes from such a good place. It comes from a place of, I don't want to impede on their creativity because they've picked these performers because they would be perfect. And so they just want to let them do their thing, which I completely understand that spirit of it. So then when I talk to the performers, I'll ask them, I like to talk about my traffic light zones. So I have a red zone, yellow zone, and a green zone. So red zone meaning a no touch zone. Some performers do not feel comfortable having their hair touched, or their arms or their stomach touched. There's always something, and it doesn't have to be a big thing, but it does give their scene partner, the ability to avoid that trap, because how would they have known that they have a thing about hand on the nape of their neck? So they just go, you inform both performers of each other's red zones, and then that gives them a playground. They're like, okay, so other than touching here and there, doing this or that, they're comfortable with this kind of kiss, that level of touch, and the scene lasting 30 to 40 seconds before cutting. And they're comfortable with, say, 3 to 8 takes. And that can change on the day. But, you get these conversations going, and people start to think about their personal boundaries, something that culturally we're not raised to really think about our own boundaries. So we might just be a very comfortable person with both the role and the scene itself, the way it was written on the page. Then you see where the camera is going to be. And if it surprises you, like I didn't expect the camera to be there. And that's where an intimacy coordinator comes in, because they get all those answers for you, so that when you get on set, there's very few surprises. There can be changes to the scene or to the order of things, but the big blocks, that can really pop up for performers have been addressed in advance. And so there's fewer of those shocking things that can really put production on hold while people process and hopefully come around to, but sometimes that can just shut a production down and really stop it in its tracks. So the traffic lights are the red lights. The yellow lights are, I'd never thought of that. I guess I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. And in which case a yellow light stays red until it turns green. So if they say, I don't know about that, then I consider that a red zone until they've sat with that information and come back at a later date. And we decide whether or not that yellow remains red or if it turns to green. And green is, I understand, I am comfortable with that and, have no problems or concerns with that action. And so those are my traffic lights. And once the traffic lights have been established for both performers, and I've explained it to each other separately and on the day together at the same time, then they go to set. And I really feel like they have the information necessary to have that creative space and to start to play and explore the action and the scene itself without worrying, oh gosh, did I cross the line? They said they were comfortable, but maybe the character isn't meant to look like they're comfortable.
Right.
So they get to go there fully knowing they have the information to do what's needed without worrying.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And so when you talk about, the script says, and they made love, and then they take off their clothes in a hurry and it fades to black. And, the director has a specific idea, but the actors are told to, come into it naturally. How do actors separate their personal lovemaking style from that on camera? Because do you know what I'm trying to ask?
I do. I do get that question sometimes. I really do think that comes down to the creative process of performers. How much of it is their personal style and not their personal style is really not something that I'm aware of. So what they brought to the scene, I don't know if that's exactly how they do it in there. It's really a performer's question. I do like to provide, options. I think options are empowering, and I love to give performers as much agency in their creative process as they can. So if they go, they might ask me if this sounds natural. Does this sound natural? Because this is not a noise I would make, but does this sound like a good sound that I would make in bed?
Interesting.
And so we might talk about that. We might talk about the kinds of kisses. What if there was a little bite? What if there was a lick? What if there was tongue or no tongue? And what if there was more? What if I used my hands? There's all these questions that can come up during an intimacy meeting. And I like to give people as many options as it pertains to the scene at hand and as it pertains to the director's vision. If they go, the director thought it might happen in a quick way and that it might be loud, the performer might go, what does loud sound like? What does loud look like? And I like to push it back onto their court and go, well, what do you think, the character's loud sounds might be like? Because the director thinks you are that character. You're perfect for it. What you are thinking, you're probably right on the mark. So I like to push it back to performers and then give them options. If they go, could I do louder, do you think? Sometimes they need a cheerleader and I'm there for it.
And feedback, I would think.
Sure.
Hey, Curiositors, just a quick pause to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. Listen, if the last 2 years have given you a chronic eye twitch, you should consider trying medical marijuana. I highly recommend it. See what I did there? There's lots of ways for it to help you, so if you have questions and if you're the least bit curious, Google Empathic Practice Pensacola. It's the most non-intimidating way to get your medical card in Florida. Their in-house doctor and holistic support make them the easy choice. empathicpractice.us. If you've got backyard barbecue plans for 2022, but mosquitoes are not invited, I recommend Insect. I've been using their pest control service for several years now. They have a certified mosquito identification specialist on staff, and pollinator care is always top of mind. If you live in the Florida Panhandle or the Gulf Coast of Alabama, give them a call, ensec.net. The UWF Historic Trust. We shoot the show at the Pensacola Museum of History. It not only houses exhibits of lesser-known Pensacola history, it's an event space too. So if you need a unique space in downtown Pensacola for a fundraiser, networking event, or a corporate party, take a look at historicpensacola.org. And if you want to tour one of the 12 museums, get your tickets in person so you can show the agent one of my emails and get $2 off an adult ticket. Get emails by texting REAL to 66866. Now back to the show. Does watching all of this happen on set feel voyeuristic? Is it sexy?
Well, I mean, there's just so many different kinds of scenes. Sometimes it's a scene where there's no consent for the characters, and it's a traumatic scene, and that can be hard to watch. And so in those cases, I like to really, in all cases, I like to take care of the crew as well as the performers, because watching these scenes happen over and over and over again can be really problematic for performers and for those viewing it. So, a great scene, a sex scene that's like really involved and going really well, and the performers are comfortable and the scene is great, and lighting's perfect. I mean, that's, creatively speaking, I'm like, this is great. This is so great. I don't know that I've ever been like, this is so sexy. But I'm like, yeah, no, this is working. This is working. I think the audience is going to be really engaged. Of course, we never know how it's going to be cut or what's going to be used or how it's going to be, channeled on screen. But, everyone just wonders how it went. The performers wonder how it looked. Directors like, how did they feel? Did the performers feel great? And the crew's like, when is lunch? And so we're all we're all on the same page, I think, having the same experience but feeling different things.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, so talk to me about modesty garments versus barrier garments. Do you have any of those in that bag of yours?
I do. Well, modesty garments are things that just cover nipples and, private areas. And they can be the same skin tone as you, or they can be completely wild colors. Sometimes a production might, you just want to make sure that they don't see anything. So you'll use something that they absolutely cannot use on camera. So you'll make sure that it's a completely different color than their own skin tone. So you'll know that the camera will be able to differentiate and make sure that they don't get what they're not supposed to get. It's helpful that way. Some performers want their modesty garment to match their skin almost perfectly, and it just feels more comfortable to them. So that's a modesty garment. There's also things like, there's all kinds of things. I think that's a whole other episode.
It's called Chantal's Bag. That's the episode title for that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It might be its own show. Then I also have things like yoga mats, and I will tailor it and cut it in a certain specific shape so that it is comfortable to wear, sort of like a pad between the legs of either the male identified performer or the female identified performer or the non-binary performer, to have a barrier. And this one, I have different thickness, so that they can feel as though they almost don't have anything between them. Or I can have something a lot more elaborate. I wonder, I wasn't expecting to pull anything out of the bag, but I also, no, I don't think I brought it out here, but I have this Pilates ball, and it can be deflated. And so once it's deflated, it causes it to be sort of it'll shapeshift to your bodies. And yet it will still be inflated a little bit so that when there is impact, there'll be some bounce. So it'll feel natural, but you will not feel the body of the other person at all. And so that can be really a helpful tool that I've used many times. And so there's all kinds of things, and they're for all genders and a different race. There's just like different colored items like this, little petals for the nipple covers. There's just all kinds of things that I can use, and then I can get creative too and invent some things.
Well, I think the yoga mat is already creative, because that's something we like when my husband and I watch movies and there's a love scene, he's paused it before and been like, hey, how are they not really feeling each other's genitals? And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm glad that you're here to say the answer is yoga mats, everyone. I'll never see yoga the same again.
Yes. Yeah, right. Exactly.
So let's talk about full frontal male nudity, shall we? I mean, why not?
Okay.
We're here. So it's not that common in shows to have it, or in movies to have it. It's less common than, female frontal nudity. So I'm wondering why. And I'm also thinking about like the one time I think I saw it, or maybe one of the times I've seen it. I think I've seen it like 3 times. And it was on the Netflix show Sense8. And the man was German. Like in real life, he's German, but he was circumcised in the show, which I thought Germans were generally not circumcised. So my question is, why is full frontal male nudity not as called upon in shows? And, if you can speak to the circumcised versus not circumcised, I don't think I've ever seen uncircumcised in a show or a movie.
That's an interesting observation. I think that if you were asking my opinion, we probably haven't seen a lot of full frontal nudity for the male identified performers because of who was writing the stories and what perspective has been most notably, heard from. So we've had men writing scripts for a very long time and writing for the male audience and appetite. And I think that that's shifting. And I think that's why you're starting to see it now. And you're starting to see it in more mainstream shows and films. And it's just becoming more commonplace.
Okay.
Where we can probably pinpoint like 10 years ago when we saw, male body parts versus female body parts.
Yeah. And the writer on Sense8 is a woman. So yeah.
So that's probably where you're going to start to see perspectives and narratives change in the future. Yeah. And I think that as long as we're treating that space with a healthy and consensual, way forward, the way that we're doing it with intimacy coordinators, I think that we're going to see that culture evolve in a much better way than it did in the past for women.
That is blowing my mind. Like right when you were saying, well, it's because they're written by male writers, I just felt like I, had a moment like, duh.
I love an aha moment.
Oh
Oprah
my gosh.
would love to be a part of this aha moment.
She would. She's here in spirit. Okay.
Written by men and for men. Yes.
Right. So what can the role of an intimacy coordinator, these conversations you're having on set, what can they teach us that we can apply to our private lives?
Well, I think that anyone listening is going to find it interesting as far as filmmaking is concerned. But in our day-to-day life, I think that what we're trying to observe with intimacy coordination is consent, and boundaries and transparency, and having consent not just be a rigid situation, but also be a informed. Like I thought it was yes, but then I understood what was involved, and now it's a no. And to respect people's boundaries, I think that is really a shocking transition that we're going through right now, where people are like, but they said yes,
right.
And they hold on to that like it's a contract set in stone, and it's not at all. It's fluid. And even in film and television, it can just, they can change their mind. And I think that once they realize they can change their mind, they're more apt not to, because they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel they have agency over their choice, so they're more apt to discuss discomfort as opposed to push through, because if you don't have the choice, sometimes you just freeze or stay quiet and push through. And that's when trauma can occur. And if in our day-to-day lives, if you work in an office space and you came on to a job with the understanding that these would be your tasks, and then you see that these don't, line up with your personal boundaries or your vision for what is comfortable in the workspace for you, I think that we're also developing that conversation to change that, to understand that you do have agency, you do have the ability to say no. And I think a lot of people are reevaluating that right now during the pandemic. What is an acceptable level of safety, of health requirements and personal boundaries? And, I think we're all sort of seeing how we want to move forward in the workspace. And so yeah, I think that in our day-to-day life, I think that might be something that people might find. This is not just for the film industry.
Right.
My position is, but I often speak to people who work in boardrooms and who want to talk about boundaries and consent and all of that, and just workspace communication as well.
Well, even just the communication that you were talking about, like, let's talk about this kiss. Is there a bite? Is there a tongue? Can I touch your face? Like, I was like, oh, that's kind of sexy. Like, that would be a sexy conversation for two people who were in a real life relationship, because you're communicating, you're being transparent. And then to what you said earlier, you're in a position to think about your own boundaries, which, as you pointed out, culturally, that's not been a norm. So I think that consent and, I'll say, personal awareness are probably the biggest takeaways that I can definitely see. Those are both things that I didn't really think would be takeaways from learning about your position, but that seems so valuable now.
Yeah. In a personal relationship, I think talk, you think, okay, on the day, the reason I do so much prep is so that on the day there's a lot less discussing and a lot more doing. It's a lot more, let's just see where this lands, given that we've talked about where not to go, what not to do, what the director was hoping to see, what you understand, the scene to mean, and so put that together. After that, if they want a more spontaneous scene, then they can do that within those boundaries. I feel like they have that safe space to create. But oftentimes performers want to know where the hand's going to go and at what time, especially if there's dialogue during the experience, then you're just like, when you say this, that would be a great time for the hand to go there and for you to push there and for you to do this. And then that's when I'll say this, so those scenes really do take a lot of coordinating, especially for the script supervisor who really needs to know what's going to happen and when. And so there's, it's a department head position. And so you do have to figure out where the cameras are going to be, what the script supervisor understands, what the director is looking for, and what the performers are comfortable doing. So when all of that is said, that's where the movie magic happens.
Yeah. And then hopefully in real life, that's where the magic happens too. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insight. And I feel like you gave us like a really fun behind the scenes. So as we wrap up, can you tell people where to find your most entertaining, most educational, wonderful Instagram account that I'm a huge fan of?
My Instagram is Chantal, what is it? Chantal Cousineau IC.
I think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't even know what it looks like. Is it like a .ic? I think it might be a .ic or an underscore. Go ahead and look for me.
Yeah, I'll link it so that they can see it. But it's very entertaining. It's light, but educational, which is all of our favorite Instagram content is funny and educational. So you nailed
Yes.
it, sis. You nailed it.
Oh, I just love comedy. I mean, this stuff, I grew up watching shows that had a lot of physical comedy, like, I'm going to tell people my age by telling you, things like Three's Company and Golden Girls, and just that kind of humor that was just like, it's very body, like what happens. You just like, so I wanted something that explains what it is that I do, but not have it be so sexual. You know what I mean? I wanted it to be funnier and educational. And so hopefully you all enjoy the Instagram, because it gives you an idea of what it is that I'm doing with my work.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you've loved a couple of episodes of the show, I'd be so grateful if you could let others know by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Just share where you're listening from and why you liked a certain episode. And if you liked this episode, you'll also like the one where an Emmy-nominated filmmaker shares how love, both past and present, inspires her to share stories and kindness and courage from the LGBTQ community. It's episode 71. Stay tuned next week when I talk with a woman who lives with her ex-husband, their teenage kids, and his new wife. Talk to you then.